Good morning and welcome to the Morning Scoop for Monday, November 22nd. This is your daily Buckeye fix. I'm Tom Orr. The game against Michigan in just 5 days. The Buckeyes win over Michigan State sets up one of the biggest editions of the game in history. It's going to be the 12th time that the Buckeyes and Wolverines have met as top five opponents. The first was 1942. The most recent was 2016. And everything is on the line this time. Big Ten East Championship, trip to Indianapolis, chance to reach college football playoff, potential national championship. My guest today is Buckeye Scoop's Bill Greene. He had a great recap of the win over Michigan State and some of his key takeaways and what they're going to mean for Michigan. So, Bill, thank you for joining me.
Good to be here, Tom.
So we have spent a lot of time talking about the offense already over the last day or so because, I mean, you all saw it. Like, there was a lot to talk about there. So I really wanted to talk about the defense more today. To you, what was the most surprising part of their defensive effort on Saturday?
Well, it was the domination by the D line that was lacking, the week before against Purdue. And I don't think the numbers really told the story of just how dominant they were. I mean, they were standing O-linemen up, knocking them back. Tyreek Smith was just out of this world. The numbers really weren't amazing for Haskell Garrett, but I thought he dominated. The interior of the Michigan State O-line, set up some things for some other guys to kind of go crazy there. And they just, they stopped Michigan State in their tracks. I mean, they couldn't run the ball, and they really got after Peyton Thorne. The numbers showed 2 sacks and I think 8 hurries. It just seemed worse than that. They dominated, in my opinion. Sometimes numbers don't always tell the full story. They batted down 4 balls were the official number. I would have guessed it was 6 or 8.
Mm-hmm.
It just was worse than what the numbers showed to be. They never gave, Peyton Thorne any chance at all. And obviously Kenneth Walker was not right. I mean, when it still was a game, the first 3 possessions, I think he touched the ball 3 times. So they knew they weren't going to have Kenneth Walker, so they really put the game in Peyton Thorne's hands, and Tyreek Smith and Zach Harrison and Haskell Garrett and that crew never gave him a chance. They never gave him a chance. They totally dominated the Michigan State front. And once that happens, it covers up maybe some other weaknesses that Ohio State might have in the back end, although there were none in this game. Even when Peyton Thorne did have time, guys were covered. Guys were covered up, and they had the whole field. They tried to go deep. They were covered. That short, soft middle sometimes can be a problem for the linebackers. It was covered. They had a tight end a couple times. No big deal. I mean, it was a great defensive effort, all keyed by that front 4. The week before, I didn't think they were very good at all against Purdue, but this week, man, they were dominant.
Yeah, as I was watching them knock those balls down, the defensive linemen, I'm with you. It felt like more than 4. I don't know if it was just 4, but it felt like more than 4. I kept thinking ahead to next week. Cade McNamara is getting a lot of passes batted down at the line, pretty much every week. He has hit an offensive lineman in the back of the helmet 2 weeks in a row with a pass. I mean, that seems like, there's obviously lots of Ohio State fans will talk themselves into lots of things to be concerned about this week. But that seems like that could be something that if the quarterback's getting passes batted down and the line is showing a good, an ability to knock passes down, that could, just one of those can derail a drive and, completely change the game all by itself.
Yeah, no doubt. It's not always sack totals, which they're important, but the hurries, the pressures, the batted balls, and then, there almost should be a stat for just the uncomfortability factor when they're coming. And sometimes they're not even around you, but you speed yourself up because you think they're coming. And maybe there are times when you have more time to let someone get open, but they're in your head because they've knocked balls down, they've pressured you, they've hit you, they're just dominating your own line. And I think quarterbacks get a sense for when the clock has to speed up because I don't have time. And then it makes the thought process goes faster and nothing works. The opposite would be CJ Stroud, who, the past couple of weeks, he's just sitting in a rocking chair.
Mm.
I mean, it's like 7-on-7 football. It's like the linemen aren't even there. 7-on-7 football. So that's the distinct difference. And if Ohio State can come with that same defensive effort this week, Michigan's not going to be able to score a lot of points, I don't think. We'll see. I mean, because they can run it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's a rivalry game, I guess, used to be. But I really don't see, I don't know. I don't see how Michigan scores 25, 28 points on Ohio State. I don't know if they can get to that number. And I'm not sure that number will be enough.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see. You're still going to play the games, you get shocked all the time. And this year's been a shocker. Everybody's getting shocked. So we'll see. I mean, to me, it's really hard to see Michigan keeping Ohio State under 35 or 40. And it's hard for me to see Michigan getting 25 to 30. But they play it for 3 hours on Saturday, and then we'll know who's right and who was wrong.
But we talked about the defensive line there, but I do want to talk about kind of the back seven of the defense, because that's where there have been problems this year. I mean,
absolutely.
The line. I mean, let's talk about the linebackers for a minute. That's a really interesting unit to me, because the numbers keep getting thinner. Paula Naoteote was out on Saturday. Cody Simon started and then left almost immediately with an injury.
Right.
Taraja Mitchell barely played, if he played at all on defense.
Yeah.
But then the guys that did play were really impressive. I mean, what did you see out of the linebackers on Saturday?
Well, I thought Tommy Eichmert had his best game, and they need him to be really good, because he's been up and down this year, and probably more down than up. Steel Chambers, I thought, he's getting better for sure, but I didn't think that was one of his better games. But he's still really good. We didn't have the awful performances that they've had so far this year. That was really good linebacker play. They played Craig Young a lot. He adds a little more speed than what Taraja Mitchell brings, so maybe they've kind of settled on their two. I mean, they've had games where they've played 5 or 6 linebackers, and the reps have all been equal, and nobody knows when they're going to be in, when they're not going to be in. Well, maybe they've settled now through the Simon injury. Maybe it's going to be Eichenberg and Chambers, and then you spice Craig Young in there where you think you need him. But I thought it was probably the best linebacker performance, in a while here.
It's almost like the NCAA teams or basketball teams where you get to the NCAA tournament, and you sort of shorten your rotation.
Shorten the bench a little bit.
Yeah, feels like that's kind of what's happening with the linebackers. Sure. Michigan State spent most of the day, once, when you're behind 21-0, like 13 seconds into the game, like they were, you need to throw the ball. And teams who have needed to throw the ball against Ohio State this year have typically been able to throw the ball. Michigan State really couldn't. Peyton Thorne ended up completing less than 40% of his passes, averaged 4.4 yards per attempt, which is just abysmal. Is that a reflection of how well the Ohio State defensive backs played to you? Or, I mean, again, the pass rush probably played a role in there too. Yeah. Or does that tell you more about the Ohio State defense, or especially the defensive backs? Or is that more about Michigan State? They had some receivers out and just, not having the talent to compete.
I think all of that factored in. To me, everything starts with that D-line. And when they're not pressuring, that puts those DBs and those linebackers in such a bind back there. This is not Sean Wade and Jeffrey Okuda and Damon Arnett and Jordan Fuller. Those guys aren't coming through the door. It's so different back there. But I thought they locked up receivers in this game. Nebraska didn't score a lot of points on Ohio State a couple of weeks ago, but they had guys open. And either Adrian Martinez couldn't hit him because he's so inaccurate, or the pass rush got to him before he could hit him. In this game, nobody was open. I mean, even their catches that they had, the few completions they had were contested. They caught Burke a couple times where he was in unbelievable position and even had his hand in there on a ball, and the guy would come up with a great catch. And the tight ends made some great catches, but they were covered up. Big difference to me in having every guy locked up, and there were no areas. They were good on the outside, they were good deep, they were good in the middle. I mean, there were just no holes there at all. So great pass rush and great play out of the back seven. And when you do that, people can't score on you.
It's an important part of football.
It works.
I'm going to title this episode "The Two Things Ohio State Has to Do to Beat Michigan," because you had a pretty simple recipe in your article that you put up on Sunday morning for that to happen. So one thing was on offense and one thing was on defense. That's nice symmetry there. So let's start with offense. What is the key to you on offense for the Buckeyes to win on Saturday?
Well, they've got to keep CJ Stroud clean. When he's clean, I mean, the accuracy is amazing for him. I mean, he doesn't just hit these guys. He hits them in the chest, in the hands, in stride. And when those guys are hit in stride, they're gone. And what people don't realize, I mean, you can play zone, but even in a zone, somebody has to pick somebody up in your zone. Well, nobody has 3 great cover guys. Most people don't have one. If you got one, you might have one great one, one average one, and then you got somebody out there that couldn't cover me or you, Tom, but that guy's going to be stuck on Smith-Njigba or Olave or Wilson, and good luck. And CJ has really grown knowing where the mismatch is. Urban used to like to play find the fish. That was his term. And when you're trying to cover Olave and Wilson and Smith-Njigba, man, nobody's got those kind of DBs. So CJ, if he's clean, and you're going to have, Ojabo and Hutchinson coming off the edges. So this is a big challenge for Ohio State. But offensively, just keep CJ clean. And Ohio State's going to score there at 35 or 40, I believe.
Yeah, it does seem like there's going to be somewhere there's going to be a mismatch. Even, Michigan has improved in the secondary. It seems like Tony Goodman and I recorded our Michigan Monday episode of Buckeye Weekly just a little bit ago. So we'll drop that on Monday, but it's already done. And, I in that episode, I said, every year there's a Brandon Watson. Like, who's going to be the Brandon Watson this year? Because, Michigan had a couple good corners in 2018. But if Ohio State has 3 good receivers, well, one of them is going to be on the Brandon Watson this year. It's just, and CJ Stroud seems like he may be able to find that guy wherever he is. On the other side of the ball, on defense for Ohio State, what's the one thing that you think will determine how this game goes?
Well, it's Tyreek Smith and Zach Harrison and Haskell Garrett and that crew. If they are bottling up that O-line and dominating the Michigan O-line, then Michigan's got deep problems. At that point, Michigan's going to score 20. We saw them play Penn State, and, they struggled to move the ball in that game. And if the front four is dominating, Michigan's in deep trouble. They're just not going to be able to put points on the board. If the Michigan O-line can get a stalemate and give McNamara time, I think Michigan can win some battles. And they really show now they've thrown the ball to the back out of the backfield, which Ohio State has had trouble with that. So, like I say, if Tyreek and Zach and Haskell and that crew are on their game, then I think Michigan's got a problem. I don't think they can score enough, without Stroud helping them by turning the ball over. So, keep Stroud clean, turn the DNs and Haskell Garrett loose. And I don't see how it's much different than what we've seen the past couple of weeks for Ohio State on offense. I think they're going to get there 35 or 40. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, is there anything else that really jumps out to you as a big concern for Ohio State? I mean, there's always the -5 in turnovers kind of thing, but
football. Like I say, if the Ohio State O-line, and they've been amazing in pass protection all year. You got 4 tackles out there; they should be amazing. But if Aiden Hutchinson and David Ojabo are out of control and loose, and they're hitting Stroud, we haven't really seen CJ under a lot of pressure yet. If they can speed CJ up and get him to turn it over a little bit, then, these rivalry games, man, lose the turnover battle 3-0 and you're not winning this one 44-24. So, that would be a concern and CJ, does he have a bad game in him? Does he go up there and just play badly? Can it happen? If it does, then you got a game going to the wire. And then again, if that D-line gets handled by the Michigan O-line, are there holes in that defense that Purdue found? And does Michigan score 30? And then they keep Ohio State around 30. And then we got a tie game with 4 minutes to go. And Ohio State hasn't been in a lot of those spots this year. So, there's concerns, always going to be concerns in a big game like this. But keep Stroud clean, let Haskell and Tyreek and Zach get crazy, and Ohio State will win this by more than what the 10-point spread is or whatever it is.
Well, it should be a really fun week. There's always a lot of craziness going on around Columbus, and there's always a lot of fun stuff to talk about as well. So, should be a really fantastic week. You can read Bill's reporting on the Michigan State game, previewing the Michigan game. He also had a dynamite piece on Sunday afternoon about sort of inside looks at a bunch of different coaching hires and guys who, rumors and who's looking where, and guys who you've probably heard like, yeah, this guy is really out there shopping himself, who may be just looking for a contract extension, other guys who may be on the move soon, an update on some Ohio State assistants, and who may or may not be in the line for potentially looking at some other jobs. Lots of great stuff from Bill. That is all on the Ask the Insider Sport at BuckeyeScoop.com. Bill, thank you again for joining me.
All right, Tom. Anytime, man.
Well, make sure you check out Bill's stuff at BuckeyeScoop.com. Alex Gleitman also had a ton of great recruiting reporting from guys who visited Ohio State. He had just like wall-to-wall stuff on Sunday morning. I think he talked to 3 different guys who had been at Ohio State for that game on Saturday. So check that out. That is all on free content at the front page of BuckeyeScoop.com. We will, of course, also have pretty much wall-to-wall podcasts this week. We know you guys are all traveling and sitting on airplanes or sitting in traffic, and you need something to do. So good news. We will fill your ears with Ohio State football content on this feed, on the Buckeye Weekly feed. All of our other podcasts will, I'm sure, be churning out stuff. Alex Gleitman's around the Oval, Kevin Noon's Big Me Kickoff, all of those great shows. Just search Buckeye Scoop wherever you find this show. You can find those. You can subscribe and then get all those shows downloaded before you hit the road to go over the river and through the woods to wherever you were headed this week. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.